Hey guys, I'm EJ and this is Kendall here, and today we're going to give you guys our top 5 villains that we want to see in Spider-Man Homecoming sequel. Now Kendall, when we look at the Spider-Man Homecoming movie we both really liked a lot. I think for both of us exceeded expectations, but we don't want to dwell too much on this movie. You know, when we're in superhero fandom, we look ahead. So we're already looking ahead to the Spider-Man sequel, which we know will be happening immediately after the Avengers Infinity War Part 2 movie, wherever that movie ended up being called. So Kendall, this is our top 5 Spider-Man villains, and these are the villains we want to see, not necessarily villains that we think will happen, but these are our big wish lists for villains that we think would be great in a Spider-Man sequel.
Right, and Kevin Feige, the head honcho at Marvel, obviously has said that we're not going to see Green Goblin, we're not going to see Doc Ock, and some of the other villains that we've seen already in the Spider-Man universe. So we're going to focus on some of the characters that we like to see that we haven't seen in past Spider-Man movies.
So we're going to start with number 5 here. Number 5, we're going to go with the Chameleon. Now, Kendall, I know you're a guy who you thought that the Chameleon would be an excellent fit for the Spider-Man Homecoming universe in terms of advancing him in allowing to bring other characters into the universe that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, the Chameleon, you know, some people might hear Chameleon they might react and say, well, how can Chameleon carry his own movie as a villain? I agree. I don't think Chameleon can carry his own movie as a villain. But, you know, we saw Shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming. I think he can play a similar role. And you have, you know, Chameleon as a character that, let's say he impersonates Spider-Man and he robs a bank. Now that you can now introduce the Daily Bugle. You can introduce J. Jonah Jameson, and he can go with his Spider-Man is a menace gimmick, right. You know. And so I think you can use Chameleon to then further the J. Jonah Jameson plot in Spider-Man Homecoming sequel. Yeah,
I agree. I think Chameleon would be a great idea when it comes to that. Chameleon oftentimes is acted as a henchman for some other major villain, maybe a guy that we'll mention later on in this video. And I think he could make a great fit. I also like the Chameleon because, as we've seen in these movies, these are more lighthearted movies. They're more kid-friendly movies. And I think the Chameleon would be a great comedic effect of a villain. He's someone who you could certainly have a very funny scene with, where Spider-Man's like, "Hey, you look just like me. What's going on?" And that would fit perfectly what the movies that they did already.
And in the MCU, who's to say that he doesn't impersonate Thor, or he starts looking like Thor, or he starts looking like Captain America? We saw that obviously in Thor: The Dark World, where Loki pretended to be Captain America. I think there are a lot of different ways to use Chameleon, and I mean, who would have thought that Vulture could have been used? And I thought Michael Keaton did a great job. So I mean, I don't think Chameleon's that far out of an idea.
And number 4, we're going to go with the Hobgoblin. And I know some of you will look at this and say, "Oh my God, another Goblin." But here's why I think the Hobgoblin could be a great idea. And it stems from what they've built with Ned Leeds already. So you look at Ned Leeds now and you say, how could that character, who apparently, he looks just like Genki from the Spider-Man universe we're accustomed to seeing with Miles Morales, how could that guy end up being the Hobgoblin? Well, my theory is there's a chance that perhaps after Infinity War, the universe has changed drastically, and when Spider-Man comes back, things are changed. And perhaps the Ned Leeds that he was friends with is not the same guy he comes back with. So my theory is that you could turn that character, someone that we saw already, had a very close relationship with Peter, turn him evil. That could certainly write itself in terms of being a very fun story. I thought that the Sam Raimi movies had a great shot of having that great trilogy finale with Franco versus Maguire, and they kind of just muddled it up by the time it got to the end. They could do the same thing, but do a better job with Ned Leeds' character in these movies.
Yeah, and we see Ned Leeds in the first movie. He's very ambitious. You know, you can tell he wants to be, you know, a hero, or he wants to get in the action. He wants to be involved.
He wants to be the guy in the chair.
He wants to be the guy in the chair at the very least. So it wouldn't surprise me if he somehow got involved. You can tell he's smarter. So if, you know, I don't know if he builds his own tech, but I mean, who's to say, like you said, in an alternate universe, or, you know, now if we flash forward a couple of years, that he's not capable of that. Maybe he's able
to reverse engineer Spider-Man's suit, which is made by Tony Stark.
Yeah, exactly.
So clearly he has some technical acumen to him.
So I mean, who's to say he can't become Hobgoblin? I honestly, I think that's the plan. Whether or not it's for Spider-Man Homecoming 2 or a third movie in the trilogy, we'll have to see, but I think we will see Ned Leeds as Hobgoblin at some point.
Now, who would you say we have as for number 3?
Number 3, we have Mysterio. You know, Mysterio is a character that I know, EJ, you're a big fan of.
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people like to point to the fishbowl, you know, helmet that he has, and say how is that going to translate? Actually,
the fishbowl is required. I don't want a Mysterio that doesn't have a fishbowl. I'm putting that out there already.
Yeah, you know, so a lot of people looked at it and say, how can this guy translate to a Spider-Man live action movie? But I think that his character could really work if you know, throw in the magician side of him, you know, throw in some of the more fantastical aspects of Mysterio. I think it could work well.
I think Mysterio would be great. I mean, Mysterio is one of my favorite Spider-Man characters personally in terms of my Spider-Man villains. I love that he's not necessarily this physical force or physical challenge for Spider-Man, but he really challenges him on a more mental level. And I think one of the greatest things about Spider-Man when it comes to when he's fighting these villains or in these situations is where he has to kind of solve this problem in a short amount of time. You get to see his intellect. I thought that Spider-Man Homecoming did a great job of displaying Peter's intellect, and I think that they wanted to go in that same route. Mysterio would be the perfect person to do it. And with the CGI you have now, it's perfect. You know, maybe in 2002, Mysterio might have looked a little ridiculous. But I think in 2017, 2018, 2019, whenever this movie comes out, I think he would be a great fit.
Yeah, and I feel like Mysterio, I don't know if he can work alone, but we haven't, in all these Spider-Man movies, we've had a second villain. So I think that's where you can use someone like Chameleon, whose abilities kind of mesh. Use Chameleon with Mysterio.
Right, I see what you're saying.
To mesh with Mysterio. So I think that could work, you know, and that could be a tag team that could, you know, really give Peter some trouble.
Yeah, but not becomes a physical problem, it becomes a mental problem for Peter to have to overcome. Number 2, we have the Kraven the Hunter, and Kraven obviously is very famous for the story, the Kraven's Last Hunt, and I don't know if you can do a story that dark based on the Spider-Man that they've developed, but nonetheless, I think Kraven's a great character because he's just a great physical test for Spider-Man. You know, he's a hunter, you know, literally, and the idea that, you know, this Peter Parker is starting to get some praise in the city. This Spider-Man, rather, not Peter Parker. You know, the girls like him in high school. You know, he's starting to become really the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's a neighborhood hero, and I think that I could see someone like Kraven looking at this and saying, "Ooh, that's a great hunt for me to go after." You know, to take down this hero they call Spider-Man. I think that it kind of writes itself. So I think that Kraven would be a marvelous choice. I think that we could see some great action scenes with someone like Kraven. I think that if there was any criticism of this movie, sometimes the action scenes maybe felt a little too CGI or too fast-paced to understand when you have someone like Vulture who's flying all over the place. I think with Kraven, you could see some certainly great hand-to-hand combat scenes.
Yeah, and I wonder, if you do throw in Kraven as the villain, could we get a Black Panther as, you know, kind of teaming up with Spider-Man?
Interesting.
You know, I'm not sure if those characters cross paths, but you can write that in there, and I think it would work.
And we already know that Spider-Man Homecoming is going to have another Marvel Cinematic Universe character with Spider-Man, so we don't know who that is yet.
If Kraven were the villain, I think Black Panther would be a top candidate to be that guy.
And number 1, we have the Kingpin, and it's not just any Kingpin. It's Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin from the Netflix Marvel Universe, the Daredevil show, to be clear. And look, it's been talked about a lot. You know, D'Onofrio has been back and forth saying, "Oh, I would love to do it," then saying, "Oh, it'll never happen." I think that if you have any kind of sense, this has to be your dream. He's the perfect Kingpin. And look, in terms of, he comes from a dark world, and then Spider-Man, this Homecoming universe, is a little more lighthearted. I think you could find a way to mesh the two. And you know, in this movie, Spider-Man's biggest thing was, I want to be legitimate. I want to have people take me seriously. But what better way to put him in a serious scenario than have the Kingpin come into the situation? That ratchets up the seriousness of the movie, ratchets up the danger that Peter Parker's in. And I think that would be awesome. I think that D'Onofrio has been a perfect casting for Kingpin. And if you add D'Onofrio, you could be getting some friends from the Defenders.
Yeah, you know, if Kingpin joins in as part of the movie, now that throws Charlie Cox's Daredevil into the mix.
Who's already said he wants to work with Tom Holland.
Yeah, and obviously there are a lot of really good stories revolving around Daredevil and Spider-Man. So obviously we've seen we've seen older Peter Parker work with Matt Murdock at times. But I mean, let's say we get Peter Parker, you know, his junior year of high school working with Matt Murdock. I think that could be really cool. And Kingpin's another character that could work well with other villains in the Spider-Man universe. You know, you could have a Chameleon with Kingpin. You could have Alistair Smythe, who we saw in the '90s Spider-Man cartoon, work with Kingpin a lot. There are a lot of different characters, and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 tried to throw in Alistair Smythe, but you know, it was Ryan from The Office, and that didn't work out too well.
Not much worked out well for that movie.
But I think that there's a lot of upside with the Kingpin character. Like I said, he's a dark character, so it'd be a risk. But Vulture wasn't exactly the most you know, kid-friendly villain either.
No,
you know,
he vaporized a dude.
Yeah, you know,
Spoilers,
Michael Keaton.
Sorry, didn't see the movie.
Why are you watching this?
Yeah,
Michael Keaton played a very good role, but I think most people would agree. I think the consensus is that Vincent D'Onofrio is the best villain in the MCU. So,
without question.
What better way to introduce him into the movie universe than to throw him into Spider-Man: Homecoming?
Totally agree. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Whatever you guys feel in terms of whether you agree with our opinions or if you have some other Spider-Man villains that we didn't mention that you think should be in the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel, feel free to pop down on the comment section and give your thoughts. But for now, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. And thanks for listening.